Welcome to Burlington's Candidate Forum. My name is Alan Foulds, and I'll be moderating the discussion. I'm joined by a press panel to ask the questions. Please welcome Nikki Cadillac, founder of Burlington Buzz, and Sydney Bowles, B News news producer. At this session, we focus on the race for Town Moderator. We have two candidates for a one-year position. The incumbent is Bill Beyer. The challenger is Adam Senesi. Welcome, everyone. Let me review the ground rules. Here is how we will proceed. Each candidate will offer a 1-minute opening statement, and we've drawn lots for the order. After that, our press panel will ask questions of the candidates. Each candidate has 90 seconds to respond, and we'll alternate between the members of the press panel, and we'll change up the candidates for first response. Next, each candidate is allowed to ask one question of the other candidate, again with 90 seconds to respond. Finally, each candidate will give a 2-minute closing statement. We'll use the same order as we did for the opening statements. The closing statement is the opportunity for rebuttals to statements made by the other candidate if either wishes to do so. In the interest of covering as many subjects as possible, we'll keep a close watch on the time, so please frame your responses accordingly. Well, if everyone is all set, we will get started with the opening statements. 1 minute, Mr. Senesi.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to start by thanking the moderator and the press panel tonight, as well as the viewers at home. Thank you for joining us. My name is Adam Senesi. I'm a 3-term town meeting member, a former chair of the Capital Budget Committee. I've also served on a few of the ad hoc committees of town meeting, including the Sidewalk Committee, where we worked with our state legislator to create a report that resulted in $1.5 million in aid to our sidewalks along Route 3A. I also served on the MWRA Water Study Committee, where just this last summer, we didn't have a water ban, fortunately. In addition to that, I've had experience serving on building committees, including the Fire Station 2 Building Committee, as well as the DPW Rec Facility Building Committees. I'm a father of 2 children. I'm a husband, as well as a volunteer with the St. Mark's People Helping People Pumpkin Patch. I've served the Pumpkin Patch every year and staffed it for a day each and every year since its inception. I'm running for this role because I believe we need a change of direction as moderator. I think that we need to bring back inclusivity to our town government and encourage everyone that's on town meeting to get involved in the committee level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bill Beyer, opening statement.
Thank you. Yes, and I'd also like to thank BCAT and our intrepid reporters and my town moderator here over joining us. Alan, thank you. And I'm Bill Beyer. I've served the town of Burlington as its moderator for 7 years now. Before that, I spent 25 years on town meeting, including 12 years on the Ways and Means Committee, 4 of which I was served as its chair. I was approached 7 years ago by some residents who were concerned about the way town meeting was being run, and they appreciated the job I did as Ways and Means chairman. So why am I continuing to do this? Because I really like it. I am running for re-election because I enjoy being involved in all aspects of town government that the job requires. I have a deep understanding of the moderator's role and its effect on the operation of town meeting process. I work to get town meeting the information and committee recommendations it needs to make decisions. My job is simply to make government work.
All set. Thank you very much. All right, we will now move to the questions from the press, and we'll begin with Sydney Bowles of B News.
All righty, thank you both for being here. Thank you, Alan. The town moderator is tasked with appointing town meeting members to various committees across town government. How would you or do you make sure you're utilizing town meeting members' skills and expertise appropriately? And in the circumstance when there are multiple qualified candidates for the same position, how would you proceed?
And we'll begin with Bill Beyer.
Thank you, Sydney. That is a good question. That is a big piece of what the moderator does, and it's a piece I take very seriously because these are the committees that report to town meeting. So they need to work, they need to be effective, they need to be balanced. And as I am looking for people to serve in these committees, I keep all of those things in mind. And they're approximately half of town meeting members are involved in committees. So it's certainly not an exclusive club. So I keep in touch with them. I reach out to new members. I reach out into the community to other groups that are interested in town government to see if I can make it as inclusive and diverse as I possibly can.
Thank you. Same question, Adam Senesi.
Yeah, so this campaign that I'm running, it's really about relationships. And for better or worse, I'm a chatty and friendly guy that I know most of the 126 members of town meeting by name. And with that, I know their kids' names, and I also know what they do professionally for their careers. And we've got a broad swath of talent on town meeting that just isn't being utilized. Many have told me that they've sent emails to get involved on committees, and their emails have gone unreturned. I already know several of the people that I'd like to put on committees and get more involved in certain aspects. You know, people that are certified public accountants, I think would be great fits for Ways and Means. Again, because I have these relationships and I really want to motivate people to be involved. I don't want people to feel that there is a barrier that excludes them from being able to be involved. And I plan on not only being proactive about seeking out these people to fill these roles, but I encourage it to be a two-way conversation. What I want to do is I want to create essentially a farm team on town meeting so people can be their best. People can learn in the specialized area that they want to specialize in, and then at some point potentially go on into a more specialized area, serving in the select board, the school committee, and the planning board. My goal as the moderator is to foster and nurture the growth and development of these members of town meeting and never stand in their way and campaign against them.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question comes from Nikki Cadillac of Burlington Buzz.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Alan, and thank you to the candidates. What would you say that your role would be in both recruiting people to be on town meeting / educating the public about what town meeting is and how it works and what the role of the moderator is with town meeting?
And this time we'll start with Adam.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess in a lot of ways the moderator is the face of town meeting and the ambassador for town meeting. So again, being out there in the community it's something that I've always done. It's something that I'll continue to do. I will go to the various events around town, as well as the board meetings of the various subcommittees of town meeting. Another thing that I'd like to do is once a year when we have a new freshman class of town meeting members, I'd like to get them all together and sort of act as a mentor for them. Give them the opportunity to get to know who I am. I'd get the opportunity to know who they are, what their professional background is, and what they're interested in, what motivated them to get involved, so we can use them to the town's greatest benefit. The idea is if we create a richer and more fulfilling experience for our town meeting members, we're going to get more out of them, and so will the town.
Okay, same question, Bill.
Could you run that question by me once more, Nikki?
Sure. What would you say is your role as the moderator of educating the public about what town meeting is, how it runs, and encouraging more people to join town meeting?
Well, anytime I tell someone I'm town moderator, I have to educate them as to what town moderator and town meeting is. And I'm a huge fan of town meeting, and I talk it up at every opportunity. Anytime someone gives me a chance to say something nice about town meeting, I do. I encourage people to run. I have included people who are not town meeting members on committees, and they have subsequently joined town meeting. So it's a constant issue in front of you. But one thing you always have to remember as the moderator is that you take a back seat. You're not the person out front. You might be the face they see, but you are not the important face of town meeting. the people sitting in the seats that are the important, the town meeting members who are doing the work. I'm just trying to give them the right atmosphere, the right to conduct their business.
Okay, thank you. For the third question, we return back to Sydney.
Thank you. The moderator role is interesting because it's an elected official, it's an elected position, but it's not a political position. Moderators must be impartial and they must meticulously follow applicable state and local laws. How would you make sure your personal opinions on issues or on individual people do not impact your decisions as moderator?
And again, we'll start with Adam Senesi.
All right. In that instance, I would say that I strive to conduct a town meeting with a level of fairness and impartiality. That would definitely be a change in course of what we've seen of late. Back in September, the moderator recused himself from a debate involving hybrid town meeting, but he joined the debate in the audience and spoke out against hybrid town meeting. Now, I also had opinions as a town meeting member at that time, but that was my role as a town meeting member. The role of the moderator isn't to take positions, and that was an instance where the moderator took a position. I'm going to give another example of where the moderator has showed his hand on a few occasions. Back in January town meeting, the moderator almost passed a warrant that actually failed. He miscounted. I understand that errors can take place, but when he was challenged on the miscount and a roll call was asked for, the moderator pushed back on the member of town meeting. He didn't want to do the roll call. He made that clear that he didn't want to do the roll call and insisted he had gotten the count correctly the first time. In fact, his role as moderator was to ask the audience if there was a second for the roll call. If a second person had said there was a roll call, we would have voted to determine whether there was a roll call. I will conduct town meeting under the town's bylaws and using the Robert's Rules of Debate. One last example. Back in September, the moderator threatened to have an 80-something-year-old tenured town meeting member thrown out of town meeting by the police. This town meeting member was acting in accordance with the rules of town meeting, and again, the moderator overstepped his bounds in that situation. These aren't things you're going to see me do.
William Beyer.
Well, thank you very much, Adam, for bringing up those three issues so I can discuss them. The one about the vote at town meeting that you say I almost called. You've been on town meeting for 9 years now, right? You ought to know what's required on a 2/3 vote. Seeing 20 people, at least 20 people, vote against something, you should know that that's way too many for me to call. I couldn't call that vote. It's a 2/3. The next step was going to be a standing count, which is what I was in the process of starting and talking to the town clerk and getting her set for that when someone asked for a roll call vote. So we had a roll call vote. That's all there was to that. There was no miscalling. There was no ambiguity in what I was doing. It was a straightforward how you run town meeting. Now, as far as me expressing my opinion about a hybrid meeting, I recuse myself because I certainly can't moderate if I'm going to speak. And really, who better to speak about the difference between a hybrid meeting and an in-person meeting than the person who had to do it, who stood up there with 126 little squares on the computer screen and had to make that town meeting run, which I did, versus having people in person with a level of communication and the level of discussion is so much superior to a hybrid meeting. And as a fan of town meeting, I did not wish to see it go backwards in its quality. So that is why that occurred.
Okay, we have another question from Ms. Cadillac.
Yes, thank you. So town meeting, as we know, is not governed by open meeting law, and open meeting law sort of says that elected boards and commissions can't have a discussion amongst themselves essentially unless it's an open meeting. So I'm wondering what you think is the line between town meeting members gathering information and educating themselves ahead of a town meeting, so gathering and discussing the issues, versus making up their minds before they go to town meeting and hear all sides of an issue and hear from constituents, proponents, and opponents.
And this time we'll start with Mr. Beyer.
You know, with there's this internet thing out there that seems to have caught on. And with its advent, there are many more opportunities for town meeting members to interact. And I mean, as moderator, I have nothing to say. It's their perfect right to interact and speak. I have cautioned groups on occasion because the arguments and discussions they're having should be happening on the floor of town meeting. And it's a fine line there, I will certainly admit. I want to encourage interaction and discussions and passing on information. But sometimes discussions in small groups can sometimes go awry when they don't have the information and don't have the people in front of them from a town meeting to object and to correct it. But it's what happens now, and that's fine. People have the right to do it. So let's discuss.
Okay, the same question, Mr. Senesi.
Yeah, so this is a ruling by the Massachusetts Attorney General that says the town meeting is one of the few bodies that can hold conversations outside of the actual meeting. I think there is a place for some of this, for example, with informational sessions leading up to town meeting. That really helps town meeting proceed, and it raises the level of discourse at town meeting when people come in with the appropriate information that's going to facilitate a better discussion and alleviate some of the more basic questions that might get asked. But aside from that, I really, I'm not going to speak to the wisdom of the Attorney General's ruling. I think that, there are communities, there's a new Facebook community on specifically to Burlington Town Meeting, where anyone in the community can participate and be part of the conversation. And again, a lot of those information sessions that we've held for town meeting in the past, those are things that are open to anyone who wants to contribute. So again, it's all about getting people involved. A lot of the people that start by contributing around one issue who might not be town meeting members, they end up running pretty shortly thereafter. So I think that's a good thing, and I'm not going to argue with the Attorney General.
Okay, thank you. And now for our final question in this section of the forum, we go back to Ms. Bowles.
Thank you. This has been touched on a little bit, but we'll return here one more time. You often hear people mention that a sizable number of Burlington's 126 elected town meeting members don't show up to town meeting. Sometimes it's right around that 100 mark, give or take. What would you do to help make sure that town meeting members make it to those meetings? And additionally, what do you see as the moderator's role in ensuring that town meeting accurately represents the diversity of the Burlington community?
And again, we'll start with William Beyer.
Well, let me start with the end piece of your question. The moderator doesn't have much to say about who runs for town meeting. Who is elected depends on the voters of the town. Granted, he can encourage people, which I have done, to increase the diversity. It's sometimes hard from people of minority groups to get elected, unfortunately. And so to counterbalance that, I have made certain appointments to kind of address that issue. Town meeting did pass a bylaw to slightly punish people who don't show up, that when they go to get reelected, instead of just checking the box and telling Amy Warfield that they want to be reelected, they have to go out and get 10 signatures. That's not really much of a penalty, but maybe it makes them think once or twice more about whether they should be town meeting members and wish that they want to continue. I try to run a good meeting, realizing how important people's time is. And no one likes to sit there and waste time in a meeting. So the better meeting that I can run, the easier it is for people to stay involved and to come to meetings.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Adam Senesi.
Yeah, so I think changing the atmosphere of town meeting to one where people feel heard, people feel respected, people feel valued, that's going to get people more involved. In the past, we've been asked by the moderator to fill his committees, and we've been thanked by him running candidates against us when some of us have pursued other offices. So I think running a more positive atmosphere is the direction we want to row in as far as taking Burlington. When it comes to committee appointments, we want to make sure that the people that are being appointed to these committees are people with good attendance. We want to treat that as a carrot. And as far as just getting more people involved, I think, again, the moderator serves in some role as an ambassador to town meeting, and it's an opportunity to just get out there and encourage everyone to be involved every opportunity that you get.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to the next portion of the forum where each of you gets to ask the other a question. And you have 90 seconds to answer, and we will begin with William Beyer's question.
Well, Adam, as you know, a big piece of being town moderator is the rules and regulations one must deal with. One that's particularly tricky is if someone wants to reconsider an article. It's covered in Robert's rules. It's also covered in our bylaws. Can you educate us as to how to deal with that?
Mr. Senesi.
Could you clarify the question? I'm not exactly sure what you're asking. Which provision in Robert's rules is this?
If there's someone makes a motion to reconsider an article, a warrant article,
okay,
how would you deal with it?
So in that instance, you would, if it's already been voted on and it's on the warrant, you can't vote on it again unless it appears on the warrant. It would have to go to a new warrant.
That's not correct, I'm afraid.
Okay, can you tell us what the answer is?
Someone can make a motion to reconsider an article, and it comes up at the end of town meeting. And there is going to be a vote at town meeting, and if 2/3 of the people decide they wish to reconsider it, they can vote it again.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll admit that there's going to be a learning curve to this, but I'm reading what Robert's rules. I'm planning to take the Mass Municipal Association's course on moderator. I've read the bylaws. I know that you've had some trouble following some of the bylaws on appointments. So, I mean, there's a learning curve for all. He said 7 years. I'll get it figured out between April and May.
Okay, thank you. And now, Mr. Senesi, your question to Mr. Beyer.
So you came out of Ways and Means, and as a member of Capital Budget, I've known for 3 terms that we were potentially going to be doing a school and a police station at the same time. Mm-hmm. Now, your Ways and Means, we were recently told at town meeting by Assistant Town Administrator John Denizio that we're in a position where we might have to start passing 2.5 overrides on a year-over-year basis just to fund our operating budget. There's discussion of a debt exclusion on both the high school and the police station. Up until as recently as last summer, your Ways and Means Committee showed up at a school committee meeting insisting we wouldn't need a debt exclusion for the school. How did that committee get it so wrong? And at what point do you potentially consider personnel changes or changes to committee membership?
Well, I'm glad you're bringing up issues of town finance, which have nothing to do with the moderator's job. So let's go through some of those. Recent analysis by the Ways and Means Committee indicates that if we have a 1.5% growth rate in our tax base, we won't have to worry about hitting the Prop 2.5 limit for 10 to 12 years easily. If it goes up a little bit more than 1.5%, we'll never run into it. As far as the debt override goes, well, first it has to get through town meeting. Whether it's a debt override or whether it's not, it has the same effect on the town residents' property tax. The reason for considering it, probably not for the police station, I don't believe it's necessary. They may consider it for the school, and the only reason to do it is because it gives them a little more wiggle room should the operating budget grow a little more quickly than they wanted to. They might run into the Prop 2.5 budget. But I'm afraid you've certainly overstated what Mr. Dinzio's concerns are.
Okay, now we move into closing statements. We each have 2 minutes for these, and we begin with Adam Senesi.
So thanks everyone for joining us over the course of this debate. I feel like I found my best voice through this process. I have the experience to do this role. I have a lot of great experience on town meeting. And again, there have been a lot of questionable decisions made at town meeting by the incumbent. This is largely an administrative role, and a lot of the back-end administrative tasks just aren't getting done. I'd like to bring that back so they do get done again. Emails get returned, people feel valued, people want to be included again. I'm humble enough to understand that there will be a learning curve. I'm confident enough to believe that I can perform as well in the meetings as the incumbent on day one. As far as the back-end administrative, the sky is the limit there, because just a lot of things aren't getting done behind the scenes. Again, I think that there is room for getting new blood involved into these committees, people that have backgrounds in finance onto our Ways and Means Committee. I don't think that what the moderator said is true. We're looking at a Proposition 2.5 override this fall. It's already in the works, and that's shameful. You have a choice this year. You can go with the same direction that we've gone down, or you have a new opportunity to take a new direction. I hope you'll take advantage of that new opportunity. Early voting will be open late month. Please vote by mail, and definitely please show up on Saturday, April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And closing statement, Mr. William Beyer.
Thank you. I'm a little baffled now where to start. I'm being accused of not responding to people, of not doing backroom work that needs to be done, when I don't think my opponent has a clue of what that entails, nor of the level of work that needs to be done in order to get a town meeting up and running. But be that as it may, we'll let him blow his smoke. I hope you don't believe it. But let's go back to what I really would care to say for my closing remarks. 7 years ago, I brought out this hat and put it on and said something like, well, I'm not the most well-known person in town, and I wear this a lot, and maybe you'll recognize me a little bit more if I wear this. And I get asked about it all the time. Why do you wear that hat? This hat was my dad's. My dad was an elected official in the town of Wakefield, where I grew up. Wakefield has a big 4th of July parade, and the elected officials used to march in that parade. My dad wore this hat. So when I wear this hat and I'm dealing with something political, well, I'm channeling you, Dad, so that's it. My dad loved his town, and he was very committed to it, just as I love Burlington, and I'm very committed to it. You've heard of my government experience. You've heard me answer the tough, difficult questions that a moderator needs to deal with. But that's not all I'm involved in our town. Since moving here 37 years ago, my family joined the Congregational Church. You know, that old white church sitting on the corner of Bedford and Lexington. And I'm not talking religion here, please. We're not doing that. But I'm one of the trustees. That means I get to take care of the building. I get to be a caretaker for that piece of Burlington history that in 8 years will turn 300 years. And I mean, that's just a hint of some of the things I've been involved with. I love this town. I've been involved in so many aspects of it. Rotary, I'm on the People Helping People board. And I really love town meeting and believe in it deeply. So I hope you will vote for me so that we can continue this well-run town to be well-run. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that brings us to the end of the forum. In closing, I thank both candidates, Bill Beyer and Adam Senesi, for sharing their vision of town meeting with the people of Burlington and offering their service to the town. Thank you, Nikki Cadillac of Burlington Buzz and Sydney Bowles of B News. And finally, thank you to Jen Dodge and the rest of the staff and volunteers here at BCAT. They make this forum happen. Remember, Election Day is Saturday, April 6th. Polls are open at the high school from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and there'll also be early voting before that. Here is your chance to have a direct say in how your town is governed, how Burlington operates. Make sure you take advantage of that right and that responsibility. Thank you for watching.